So the Alba Strike Structure Deck is nearing its release, and every TCG player can see it looming on the horizon, ready to make the meta remember just how good fusions can be. Not that we ever really forgot. But why is that? Is everyone really afraid of a deck involving Albaz and his buddies just hanging out? No, that's not it at all. In case you haven't been keeping up with the upcoming cards, the reason everyone cares about this structure deck is basically for two cards, Branded Fusion and Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon. Now I'll be making a few decks with this engine in the upcoming weeks, so let me quickly explain it now so that I don't have to go over it again in future videos. Basically, Branded Fusion summons an Albaz fusion monster by using materials from the deck. Now if Red Eyes Fusion and Destiny Fusion haven't taught us anything yet, basically fusing from the deck is incredibly strong. The thing is, sending Albaz alone isn't super useful for most decks, but what makes this so good is that the Albaz fusion monsters have very lenient summoning conditions. Take Lubellion. It takes a Fallen of Albaz and any dark monster. You're probably already seeing how good this can be, right? The cherry on top of it is Mirror Jade. By making a Lubellion first, it can trigger its fusion effect to use itself and the Albaz in the graveyard to summon Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade's first effect is a quick effect non-targeting banish, which for cost can send something like a Titaniclad to later get you a search. That's already incredibly powerful, but if that wasn't enough, if your opponent removes it, it will destroy all of your opponent's monsters in the end phase, just to make it as hard as possible for them to recover. Okay, so this new engine is broken, but what does this have to do with Buster Blader? Well, the Buster Blader deck is primarily a fusion deck about this one guy with a really big sword who hates dragons. I mean, there's actually a tragic backstory told through the card art where he gets a cute dragon pet, but then has to kill it when it's an adult. Oh, spoilers I guess. But mostly, he just really hates dragons a lot. In fact, he hates dragons so much that he needs to be fused with one to achieve his full potential. Oh, and he also needs to summon a dragon monster on the field to work properly as well. That's just how much he hates dragons. The problem with Buster Blader is that, if trying to play it pure, it's a frustrating deck that verges right on the edge of being playable, but falls ever so slightly short. You see, whenever you think you have a combo figured out, you run into what was my biggest gripe with the deck when I first tried building it a few years ago. The deck is basically divided into 3 sub-archetypes, and you're never quite able to search or use the ones you want. You have Buster Blader monsters, you have Destruction Sword cards, and then you also need to make sure that you do have dragons around for the fusion summon. Within the archetype, you can sort of do most of what you need, but that's by sacrificing your whole hand to do so. That's where the Albaz engine comes into play. You see, the reason this all works is thanks to these fusion effects sending things to the graveyard, and also the fact that all the important parts of the Buster Blader deck work mostly through its traps, meaning that you have the perfect storm of cards dodging each other's downsides to build an incredibly powerful board in a surprisingly consistent way. You basically have a bunch of engines working together. You have a branded engine with branded opening, which can search Alba, which can then in turn search branded fusion, giving you a ton of copies of that card. Then that leads you to an Albaz Dogmatika package, letting you send stuff from the extra deck to get access to the good old combination of Ecclesia and Fleur de Lis, or just Punishment. That in turn leads to a Shaddoll package, giving you a draw and of course a winder. It'll be much harder to stop when everything your opponent controls is forced into defense mode. And then finally you'll back all of this up with the good old Buster Lock. The Buster Blade fusion monster, combined with Buster Dragon, basically means that everything your opponent summons will be negated and forced into defense position. Want to see how this all comes together? Well, let's check out the deck. Here it is. There's a lot going on here, so let me go over each engine one at a time, starting with the actual Buster Blader cards. First up is Buster Blader, the Destruction Swordsmaster. You're basically just running this to be a fusion material, but there are a few ways of getting it on the field, and it's not like it's useless if you do get one on the field. Then there's 3 Buster Whelps. This is your most important normal summon, since it searches Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman, the card which gets everything going. It also has other effects that are especially good in later turns, but mostly you run it just for the search. You also run a Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, but it's more of a backup play in later turns, since Window is already a powerful enough floodgate. The traps where the archetype really comes together. Prologue is an incredibly powerful card, sending a Destruction Sword and a Buster Blader to the graveyard to cheat out a Buster Dragon for 2 turns. You'll be sending your Buster Blader and a Destruction Sword's Memories with this card. That's because Memories has a graveyard effect that lets you fusion summon the Buster Blader fusion by banishing stuff from your graveyard. You don't use it too much for the first effect, but since you discard a lot in this deck, drawing it is usually fine as well. Together, these 2 traps set up the Buster Lock as long as you've gotten a dragon in the graveyard thanks to the other fusion spells. To top it all off, Destruction Sword Flash has the incredibly powerful effect of straight up banishing all monsters your opponent controls, as long as you have the Buster Blader fusion monster on the field. It even offers decent protection as a graveyard effect. To make sure you can get to these, I run 3 trap tricks. You mostly need Prologue, but getting a Sword Flash if you already have everything else you need is very nice too. Keep in mind that you can flip Shaddoll Schism, then use Trap Trick and then activate Prologue before using Schism's effect, since Trap Trick only prevents you from activating more than one trap, which is different to activating the effect of more than one trap. Next is the Dogmatika package, with 1 Ecclesia, 1 Fleur de Lis, 2 Albaz, 2 Nadir, and then 2 Punishment. Ecclesia searching Fleur de Lis is a nice way to deal with anything that might get past the Buster Lock, as well as being a bunch of extra damage. Running 2 Albas instead of 1 is mostly just for insurance, as well as being able to make another Mirror Jade in later turns. Nadir is just great for decks like this, and Punishment is great for dealing with Link monsters that couldn't be forced into defense mode. Next we have the Branded package. Run 1 Alba, 1 Dramaturge, 3 Opening, and 3 Branded Fusion. The 3 Opening but 1 Alba is because your normal summon is best spent on Buster Whelp, so it's better to summon it from the deck with Opening if you need to search Branded Fusion. Dramaturge is there to also be something you can summon with Branded Opening in case you don't need to search Albaz. Finally, we have a small Shaddoll package of 1 Beast and 1 Schism. Beast can also be sent to make a Mirror Jade, giving you a draw to compensate for the discards. Top it off with 3 Ash and 3 Ghost Ogre, and that's your main deck. Now for the extra deck, obviously it's mostly fusions since you'll be locked into them 90% of the time. The only non-fusions are 2 Buster Dragons, the second one being a backup, and then a Protector Whelp just for late game plays or if you brick incredibly hard. Then, since you're running Branded Fusion, you'll need some targets for it. Run 2 Mirror Jade since it's the most powerful one and the one you actually want to end on, and then 1 Lubellion for the easy summoning of Mirror Jade, Titaniclad as a way to send Buster Blader, or just to send with Mirror Jade or Nadir to search a Fleur de Lis, and Albion to be an alternative way of getting to Mirror Jade, as well as a way to send Buster Whelp. Then we run 2 Buster Blader fusions, the second one as a backup because you really want to keep that lot going. You then run 1 Apkallone and 2 Winder to keep up that floodgate with Schism. Finally, 2 Enter since you have a bunch of cards that send from the extra deck, and this is usually a great target. So that's the deck, but decks like this are best seen in action, so now let's have a look at some replays. So now let's see some of the combos this deck is capable of, but first, if you've been enjoying the video so far, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Anyway, for this first replay, I wanted to show you an example of all 3 engines working together to make a full board. You'll want either a Buster Whelp or a Prologue, then a Branded Fusion or one of the many ways to search it, and then something to get an Apkallone into the graveyard, so probably Nadir. Start by summoning the Buster Whelp to get a Prologue, which basically completes your Buster Blader part of the combo this turn. You'll do the rest next turn. Then use Branded Fusion to send a Shaddoll Beast and an Albaz to the graveyard to make a Lubellion. Discard with Lubellion and draw with Beast, before making a Mirror Jade. Next up is Nadir, sending Apkallone to get another Albaz. Apkallone searches Schism and then discards the Albaz. Now all you need to do is set both traps and go to next turn. When that turn comes, activate Prologue, sending a Buster Blader and a Memories. If you want, you can immediately chain memories to banish an Albaz and a Buster Blader you just sent. When both resolve, you get a Buster Blader fusion and a Buster Dragon. You can also banish Prologue to get some extra protection if you want. To top it all off, activate Schism, banishing Beast and Apicalane to get a Winder. Your opponent can now only special summon once, and all of their monsters are turned into dragons before being forced into defense mode and have their activated effects negated. On top of all that, you can also banish a monster they control with Mirror Jade, while sending a Titaniclad to the graveyard to search something for your next turn. So normal summoning Buster Whelp is nice, but drawing Prologue is completely fine too, even at multiple copies since you're discarding a bunch of cards anyway. You'll want to start by just setting Prologue before using Branded Fusion, sending an Albaz and a Dragon Buster. That will then get you a Lubellion who, at the cost of your spare Prologue, becomes a Mirror Jade. Now that you have an extra deck monster out, summon Ecclesia to get a Fleur de Lys before setting your Infimp and ending your turn. Now Prologue can send the usual 2 cards for a Buster Dragon, and you follow that up with a fusion summon of Buster Blader, using the one you just sent as well as the Dragon Buster from earlier. Now you still have Mirror Jade's Banish, the entire Buster lock, and if that fails, a negate from Ecclesia and a set Infimp. Despite no Winder, it's honestly still a pretty good board with backup plans for stuff like Dark Ruler or Forbidden Droplet. For this third hand, I have both an Alba and a Buster Whelp, but since I already have a Prologue and even a Trap Trick, Alba takes precedence. Normal summon him for a Branded Fusion, which you use to this time send an Albaz and a Shaddoll Beast. This is because we can cover getting a dragon into the graveyard by discarding Buster Whelp instead, so you get to draw a card while you get your Mirror Jade. The card I drew was Nadir, so we can use it to send an Apicalane while searching Ecclesia. That gets you a Schism, and you can just discard Trap Trick since you've got good traps already. Ecclesia summons itself to search a Fleur, but honestly, Punishment might have been the better choice, since I already had the Buster Lock and a Negate. On your opponent's turn, send Memories and Buster Blader for your Buster Dragon, and then banish it and the Buster Whelp you discarded earlier for your fusion. Now you're free to use Schism with Beast and Alba on the field, freeing up some space by putting Winder in the extra monster zone, and then the Fleur de Lys in the space you just freed up when it's time to try an OTK next turn. Finally, for this last one, let's skip the similar first turn so that I can show you a very cool interaction. With no Buster Whelp or Prologue, we're left with only Trap Trick to do the Buster Blade combo. But we also want to use Schism before we're locked out of traps. However, if Schism summons a Winder, we won't be able to make both of the special summons necessary for setting up the Buster Lock. So what do we do? Well, what you can do is flip Schism but just don't activate its effects yet. Then search a Prologue with Trap Trick, and then use it to get a Buster Dragon. But then we have another problem. There aren't actually any dragons in our graveyard to make the fusion with. Instead, here, you can just make your Winder with your Beast and Apicalane, and then wait for your opponent to commit to any summon. Once they do, you can use Mirror Jade to send a dragon from your extra deck to banish their monster. You can then immediately use that extra deck dragon for the fusion summon of Buster Blader now, completing your Buster Lock while banishing an opponent's monster. Just imagine that the Alba I banished was actually my opponent's card. So that's how strong modern Buster Blader decks can be. Do you think you'll give it a go? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 2 patrons Jason Murat and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!